to all of you, and my heartfelt gratitude to Indian Knowledge Consortium and Sunil ji and others who are associated with uh, Inc. For giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic. So, as educators, teachers, and working in the field of education, so it's always a concern to see where the education is leading us today and what is the scenario. In fact, today, if you see the whole world in almost every field, you have crisis. Whether we talk about economy, we talk about society, we talk about politics, we talk about life itself, we talk about the world scenario everywhere. I mean, we find crisis in almost every field, and where lies the solution is, if we look at our tradition, education was that process, or education was that which could bring a lasting solution to every problem that humanity faces. A lasting solution, in fact. If education is properly given, if education happens in its right way, then there is a solution. But today we see most of the problems are created by the educated mass. So at least the uh, complications that we see in most of the crises, you find that whole educated mass creates more problem, adds more problem. We call ourselves educated. We say that we have been, advancing uh, in our evolutionary journey, and we have reached some kind of peak in our evolutionary journey. But it is truly sad to see the kind of problems we ourselves create and the kind of education system that is being followed in most places. And especially when we talk in the context of Bharat, so there also, like, we see like how the colonial mindset which rules over the, I mean, every aspect of life, and mostly it has captured that system of education where we have not been able to free ourselves from that colonial trap, you can say. So, where is the Bharatiyata in our education? That is what is the major question. Then, when we turn to, uh, you know, get some insight or get a deeper understanding from our own tradition, the Bharatiya Rishi Parampara or Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, then there also, like, we see most of the times, most of the uh, key points or the core understanding of many aspects have been given a kind of eschatological interpretation, something, otherworldly interpretation, which doesn't appeal to people in different ages. So this is where, like, such a beautiful dictum that we find in Vishnu Purana, where it says that Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye. Now, if you contemplate on this, uh, this Vimukti is usually associated with, uh, so it is connected while interpreting, it gets connected with um, like the idea of moksha, you can say, the otherworldly, that one has to give up this world, or moksha, or liberation, salvation, in a very different sense, that one has to uh, get into some other world, right? And this is where they bring the whole idea of paravidya and aparavidya, and it creates a very different understanding when we contemplate on this, the general idea which is spread through Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye. Even while we were students and then taught about this particular dictum, Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye, now there came a point where many people even didn't want to use this Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye, saying that okay, this has done some kind of harm to us because it is not helping us advancing. So I don't know whether for fun or truly or seriously people meant it. Some people started spreading this message that it shouldn't be, like in the present context, Savidya ya Vimuktaye, so it should be Savidya ya Niyuktaye. So that means like the education must, give us niyukti. Niyukti means like it should give us good placements. It should give us, some job. So that is how the education has to be looked. And then industrial mindset has, designed the whole education system in such a manner that after getting educated, so one becomes fit to serve that industrial mindset which has created or which has been creating the educated mass who can fit into the agenda of the industrial mindset and serve and enrich that industrial mindset at the cost of one's own life, at the cost of the beauty of one's own life. So life has ceased, education has advanced in that sense, but the life has ceased to become beautiful. Life has ceased to become beautiful. I narrate a story, which is a famous story. Some of you must have heard it. So I would like to repeat that story or narrate that story. So it's a dialogue between the story is a dialogue between a baby camel and a mother camel. So the baby camel asks the mother camel that, tell me, mom, why do we have this big hunch on the back? So the mom camel said, look, my dear child, we have this big hunch on the back because we are desert animals and there is scarcity of water in the desert, and it serves as a water storage system. So then the baby said, oh, yes, I understand now. And tell me, mom, my second question is that why do we have the thick eyelashes? So, which is very, very different from other animals. So the mom camel said that this is also for the same reason, my dear child, that we are desert animal, and often we have the storm and the sands may enter into our eyes. So these thick eyelashes, it helps, protecting our eyes from the sands entering into it. I said, oh, wow, I got it. Then it said, look, mom, my last question is why do we have flat and rounded hooves? I said, yeah, it's for the same reason that if we have a split in the hoof like other animals, then it will not help us walking on the sand. So that is why we don't have split. We have full rounded flat hooves because we are desert animal. Now the baby camel says that, look, mom, I understood that we have big horns because it serves as a water storage system because we are desert animal, and we have thick eyelashes. It is very protective in the it protects eyes from sands entering into it when a storm happens, and because we are desert animal. And the third thing is that we have rounded hooves, that it helps us in walking on the desert, on the sand, because we're a desert animal. All these things I have understood very beautifully, Mom. Thank you for the answer. But tell me, what the hell are we doing in the zoo? So, this is the question. The education system is a trap for all of us, that we have so many beautiful faculties, where education system should help manifesting that and utilizing that to make life beautiful, to enjoy the world. But with all these beautiful faculties, we have a fine physical existence of ours, we have a pranic existence of ours, we have a manasik, manomaya existence of ours, we have our psychic, spiritual existence of ours. So what do we do with all these things? Now, education system has not taken care of manifesting the perfection which lies, as Swami Vivekananda says, lies already within. And this perfection is the ever perfect nature of the soul, of the Atman, of the core consciousness. And this core consciousness operates in various parts of our being. It operates in a unique way in the physical being of ours. It operates in a unique way in the pranic existence of ours. It operates in a unique way in our manomaya existence of ours, our manasik, our mental existence. And then and then core, the whole of the core is our spiritual essence. Okay, that is the central consciousness which upholds us, which because of which we operate. And from there, a part which comes forward to participate in the world, in this evolutionary journey, it is called the soul in evolution. So each being, then each conscious being, is a soul in evolution. Okay. So when we talk about manifestation of the perfection which is already lying within, then this unique character of the consciousness in every part of the being must be awakened. Okay, must be awakened. And our ancient seers and sages have gone very deep into it through the process of this inwardisation or antarmukhikarana. And Shankaracharya says in one of the stutis that if ultimate aim of life is to get into that Shashwata Sukha, Shashwata Ananda, Shashwata Santi, then he says, Kwantar mukhatvam apahaya sukhasya varta. So, where is the question of happiness if we have not turned our gaze inward? So, if we are busy satisfying the demands of our projected self, our ego driven, desire driven self, and have not turned our gaze inside, where lies the source of happiness, then happiness cannot manifest. The purpose of education, therefore, was how to get into, or how to turn oneself a perfect instrument of manifesting that ananda in every part of our being. Not just a mental ananda or a vital ananda or a physical ananda, but the very spiritual essence of ours permeating every cell of ours, every cell of ours. So that is where education was needed, because when we talk about man as a conscious being, it is not a single mold entity. It is a very complicated, very complex system which constitutes the whole of man. So that is where, so they could find out that okay, we have a very unique physical existence of ours. We have a very unique vital existence of ours, we have a very unique mental and psychological existence of ours, and each has its own complications or complexities rather. So each has its own complexities. And every aspect of the different parts of our being has to be well taken care of when we're talking about the education. So our physical being needs to be educated. Our vital being needs to be educated. Our mental, psychological being needs to be educated. Our core being, the spiritual being of ours, the core essence of ours, needs to be, by following the process of education, the methods of education, so needs to be brought to the forefront to lead our physical, vital, and mental being. So then that truly becomes the leader. Otherwise, our ancient seers and sages also have mentioned now who is leading, who is leading our life, who is leading our physical being, who is leading our vital being. So it says, Manas is the prana sharira neta, is the leader of prana and sharira. And what is the condition of manas? Then we have to see. Now what happens here? Once the different parts of the being and their complexities, the many layers of those different parts are identified, then the major thing which was observed, that every part of our being and the different layers through which they operate have their own limitations, have their own shortcomings, have their own like own problem. Okay. So education, therefore, in our Bharatiya scenario, it was called the sanskara, the refinement. So these aspects, the various aspects of our being, they needed to be refined. They needed to be made samskara sampanna. They have to be endowed with this refinement. They needed to be purified. They needed to be made shuddha, okay, pure. So now they've gone very deep to find out what were the limitations. Okay. So now when we are coming to Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye, so this is an interpretation which I'm bringing. In fact, I'm writing a whole paper on this subject to give this radical interpretation of Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye, not the understanding of a Vimukti or moksha in the traditional sense, or how different schools of thoughts have looked at the liberation, how Nyaya looks at liberation, how Vaisheshika looks at liberation, how Sankhya, Yoga, or Mimamsa, Vedanta, they look at liberation. But here, the simple meaning taken in the context of education is that how this system of education meant to liberate the physical, vital, mental from their limitations, and uh, awaken the unique core consciousness of each part of the being, so then they become well aligned with the core essence, the spiritual being, which then becomes the leader to lead the entire life. So that is what is meant by the Saa Vidyaa Vimuktaye as per this interpretation. And where we look at Swami Vivekananda, he talked about this freedom. We look at Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So what they have talked about the education while drafting the national system of education, Sri Aurobindo has gone very deep to draft the Bharatiya model of education, its pedagogy, its philosophy, and the system, the methods, everything. Like, it should be national in spirit. So there's nothing like where we have imitated, or we have simply adopted without understanding or assimilating it. We have taken up something. He doesn't say that we should not adopt, or we shouldn't look at things outside or other countries, other nations. He said, like, whatever is beautiful, whatever can be assimilated, whatever is in alignment with the swabhava and the swadharma of Bharat, must be accepted, must be adopted, but it has to be assimilated, the atmasatkarana, but not to be imitated without understanding or assimilating it. And this assimilation can happen when it gets aligned with the swabhava and swadharma of the very nation. So then there is the swatva, then there is the bharatiyata in whatever we do, whether in the field of education, whether in the field of politics, economy, society, or any aspect of life, or any aspect of knowledge that we are dealing with. So there has to be this swatva of Bharata. The Bharatiyata has to be reflected. So it is in this context that Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye is reinterpreted, not looking at the traditional sense of moksha, but liberating every part of our consciousness, which are the instruments through which the knowledge manifests. It is the instruments through which we can make life beautiful or attain to that Shashwata Sukha and Shashwata Ananda. Now let's look at step by step what are the limitations of the physical being, what are the limitations of the vital being, what are the limitations of the mental being, and then see what needs to be done in our education system. When we are talking about the Bharatiya education or Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye, when we are contemplating on this very aspect of liberating every part of our being from their limitations and awakening their core consciousness, so then it becomes totally aligned with the spiritual consciousness, the core of every being, and then led by the spiritual essence of ours. So then Atman becomes the Neta, not the Manas becomes the Neta, as in the ordinary life. Now, the very nature, very swabhava of the physical being, the Sarira, the Annamaya Satta, is that it is burdened with the heaviness of matter, because it is the jadata, it is the jada tattva of our being. So it is full of inertia, it is full of lethargy, it is full of tamas, it is full of like, what is the nature? Procrastination, laziness, you know, then alasya, the laziness, alasya, tamas, jadata, inertia. So this is the basic nature of the physical being. Now, when we're talking about a system of education here, the physical being is mostly neglected in our education system. Merely having some sports, some yoga session, or something like that is not addressing to the physical education in its true sense. Okay. Physical education is not meant, or was not meant, just to build body. Okay, just to have a built body, or very strong body, definitely the strength has to be there, but along with the strength there has to be some other aspects which are not taken care of in our present education system everywhere, you can say. So we just concentrate on, like, in the name of physical education, we are having a sports center, we have all kinds of games and physical exercises and everything, but the real work of awakening the physical core, the nucleus of the physical being, it doesn't happen. So the ultimate aim of the physical education is through various physical, through various practices, through various, activities, how to awaken that core consciousness, how to achieve. Because in the present ordinary consciousness or ordinary state, the physical has most disordered movements. So that's why if we look at our own life individually, education also teaches, the philosophy of education also teaches that the man, the who is actually in the journey of getting oneself educated, or having that intense aspiration for, or the quest for knowledge, quest for discovering the truth of everything, must be a ruthless observer of oneself. Must be a ruthless observer of oneself. Whether I am functioning as a conscious being, I am functioning with consciousness and awareness, or I am just functioning mechanically in a robotic manner without having any awareness of myself. So that is why what was central to our education system in the Rishi tradition is that Atmanam Viddhi. Atmava are drashtavya, shrotavya, mantavya, nididhyasitavya. Atman alone has to be seen, has to be heard, has to be contemplated, has to be concentrated upon, has to be well taken care of. So that becomes central to anything that we do in life, and especially in the field of education. So, how do we develop this Atmanam Viddhi model? So that is where this understanding of the different parts of our being, their shortcomings, and then how to awaken that. So, if we ruthlessly observe ourselves, now see, we do not know, however qualified or educated we may be, our physical movements are not organized. Our physical movements are not proper. So we do not know how to sit properly, how to move properly, how to eat properly, how to sleep properly. So we do not know. So that is why we need, even the highly educated mass needs a coach or needs someone to tell him what food to be taken, when it has to be taken, how one has to move, how one has to keep one's own body active. So it shows that we needed a special education for that because our education system didn't include this. Okay. So what happens that the body must attain to organized movement. Every physical movement of ours must become a necessary movement, a rhythmic movement, and that movement, like generates more joy and beauty than creating a chaos in our life. So to make ourselves free from this chaotic situation, chaotic movement. So along with the strength, because strength was very much necessary, the body has to be as strong as the asuras. So there is a beautiful Durga Stotra by Sri Aurobindo, where he says, "O Divine Mother, O Durga Devi, so give the strength of asura in my body." Okay. Asurasya balam. Okay. But in deha, in manas and prana, in my mind, in my mental, psychological being, and in my pranic satta, give me deva bhava. So in the heart and mind, in our prana, in our emotional and sensational being, we carry the deva bhava, the divine attitude, the divine, rhythm. But the body has to be as strong as asuras. Body has to be, so they call it the Vajramayam Sarira. It has to be made free from diseases. In its ordinary state, it is prone to diseases. Okay, it is prone to diseases. So, how to make the body free from all diseases? And if you turn to Ayurveda, what it says, what is the root cause of all our diseases, all infirmities? There's again a beautiful sequential, description of how we become diseased. What creates the disease? It is because of our chaotic, disorganized, disharmonious movements, whether it is a physical movement, or whether it is a emotional, sensational movement, or it is mental, psychological movement. They create the disharmony. And once this disharmony is created because of any aspect of the disharmonious movement, so it disturbs the whole flow of prana, the flow of the blood, the rakta sanchara and the prana sanchara, affecting the nadis, which through which the movement or the flow happens. The nadis are either swollen or flattened, so affecting the flow, the natural flow of the prana and the rakta. Then what happens? It directly affects our digestive system. Either we have indigestion or bad digestion or excessive digestion, ajirnatvam, kujirnatvam, atijirnatvam eva, it says. So this is where it results. So the stuff, the food stuff which should have been flushed out, so it remains in different parts of our body, and that creates various kinds of diseases in us. So this is how in the Yoga Vasishtha you find a very sequential description of like how we become diseased. So referring to this disharmony in our movements, various movements. So when we are doing the physical education, the body, the physical being of ours has to be liberated from the burden of its, the heaviness of matter, its laziness, its, its natural tendency of falling sick and becoming weak. So its tendency of procrastination, tamas, whatever the tamas can do. So it has to be made free. So then the body, every aspect of the body, the physical being becomes very supple, very light, rhythmic. And there is a beautiful body awareness of our physical being, it grows. So Sri Aurobindo at some place while describing the various aspects of yoga, so he says the divine manifests in the form of beauty and harmony in our physical being. Now we all must have observed like how a dancer speaks. If you look at their body language, the movement of their eyes, the movement of their hands and legs while they speak, they have, through the practice, through their sadhana of nritya sadhana, so they have added that beauty to the physical movement. Okay, so that is how the body, so it is not merely having some kind of capability to have, showcase something of our bodily capability of, bending the body in some manner or some. Otherwise, what happens, every circus man or stunt man can be called a yogi. But we don't call them as a yogi because yoga needs something else more than bending the body in any manner or having any kind of stunt like the circus people do, the stuntmen do. So there has to be something else which makes a yogi a yogi, makes someone a yogi. So Sri Aurobindo, in fact, going ahead, you will find that the principles, the foundational principles of education and the foundational principles of yoga are not different. Okay, education is yoga. It is tapasya. It is sadhana through which we keep refining every aspect of our being. So, body liberated becomes a perfect instrument for manifesting that harmonious movement, that beauty in our physical existence, in our physical, being. So that becomes the liberation of the body from its state of tamas to the state of, a kind of higher tranquility where the body has the sthirata. Okay, because when Patanjali defines the asana, so he says the sthiram sukham asanam, because sthirata also has to be there in the body. The chanchalya of the body should be removed. It has to be refined in a manner that there is sthirata, there is saundarya, and there is samarasata or samarasya. Okay, sthairya, saundarya, and what do you call Sthairya, Saundarya, and Samarasya. These are the three things we have to have in our physical education. Then we call it that it is Saa Vidyaa Yaa Vimuktaye. So if our education, if our learning is not helping us arrive at this state, then there is some problem in our education system, some problem in the system which is not allowing us to do that. Now we turn to our pranic being, our vital being. So this is the most important aspect, because this is after the Jada Tattva, this is the higher principle in our existence. Okay, so if you look at the whole story of creation, the first there was this Jada, the Anna. Millions and millions years must have passed before the higher principle, the prana, enters into the Jada to awaken it, to animate it. And then you have the Vanaspati kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and all these things come. So it is the higher principle, higher than the jada, higher than the physical being. But because it has to operate in the physical being, without it, it cannot exercise its own power. So it also has to adopt the nature, the tendencies, and the characteristic features of the physical being. So it becomes mingled with that. So the prana also has tamas in it. The prana also has the jadata in it. Okay. So what happens here when we are talking about prana, this is how we find in our tradition, and especially when we come to Swami Vivekananda or Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So they have clearly, described this prana operating in our consciousness, in our being, in two different levels, at two different levels, at a lower level and at a higher level. So we have a lower vital and we have a higher vital. So higher vital is the source of pure dynamism. So where lies purity, dynamism, the strength. Okay. So the higher ambitions, you can say. Okay. But at the lower vital level, so all kinds of instinctive impulses, because we have not been able to be the prana is the vital is highly operative in the animal kingdom, you can say. So that is why we are very naturally falling into the trap of the animal instincts and animal impulses. So that is why education, like suppose we turn to the tantra, the tantric vision, the tantric way of living and moving or evolving. So tantra calls every one of us living in the ordinary consciousness as a pashu. Okay. So it says that the whole journey of ours is moving from the man animal to man human to man divine. This is what is our evolutionary track, the path. We have to transcend our animal nature and then go to become the real man, and that will facilitate the manifestation of the divine life in us. So it calls it everyone as Pashu. So Pashu means what? So Pashu, usually we translate it as an animal. Okay. But Pashu, but see, in the Sanskrit is such a beautiful, very well structured and very scientifically designed language, that here you have a very deeper sense of it. You can ask this question like, why animal is called Pashu, or why Pashu is animal. You cannot ask this in English like why animal is called animal. Maybe like animated, some kind of explanation one may get while we have to focus on the root sounds of Greek, Latin, or any other primitive languages from which the word is derived. But here in Sanskrit, each and every word is conscious of its own history. It carries in its depth the senses, the experiences that from which it emerged. Okay, it's directly connected with our consciousness. Every word is an outcome of some pressure in the consciousness, some experience that happened, and that defines the meaning. Now, Pashu comes from the root sound pas. Pas means to fix. When you say pashyati, means to see. So it means not seeing, it means fixing the vision. So if the vision is not fixed, you can see. Okay. So that's why pashyati happens, the seeing happens because of the fixity of the vision. So pas means to fix, to bind, to become limited. So the Pashu is the one whose consciousness or whose being has many, many limitations. There is less possibility of evolution. That is the whole difference between the Pashu animal and the man, because Pashu has everything, has all the senses, has a consciousness of its own, but there is hardly any possibility of evolution. Okay. So man is an evolutionary being. It has infinite possibility of uh, evolving. So that is why a crow cannot manifest the dog's quality in it. The dog cannot manifest the cow's quality in it because they are not evolving being. So that is fixed. All dogs will have the same qualities everywhere. All cows will have same qualities. All crows will have same qualities. They cannot adopt each other's. Okay, but man's consciousness is such that it can manifest infinite qualities in it. So that is the beauty. That is why it is called man, the glory of creation. And that is the difference between Pashu. So any aspect of our consciousness which binds us, which limits us, belongs to this Pashavik Chetana, the animal consciousness. So that is why in our lower vital, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, that means all these shad ripus, the six inner enemies, they are highly operative. And we immediately fall into the trap of it. And what is operate is the separative ego sense, which is the main lead in the lower vital. It works out everything with the help of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So we need to, so when we talk about the pranic existence, the vital existence, which is never given in any educational scenario, any educational institute. So we do not, you hardly find any educational institute from the beginning till end which focuses on refining our senses. I never had this education throughout my schooling or college or university. No one told me that, hey, this course you have to attend, whether core course or elective course, because this will help you refining your senses. This will help you, becoming free from your lower vital. No one told me that. There was no system, there was no course which could help us, make us aware of that. But vital education is very much necessary to make ourselves free from the clutches of the lower vital and become connected with the higher vital, where we can have a higher will, higher aspiration, and we can draw the pure dynamic power in order to move ahead in our evolutionary journey. Otherwise, we become fatigued, we become, frustrated, we become dejected because of this lower vital, because the ego is operative. If ego is not satisfied, all conditions of the ego, separative ego, is not satisfied, then it leads to frustration, it leads to disharmony, it leads to all kinds of deplorable conditions. Then we don't know where to draw the strength. Then there has to be a Krishna for Arjuna to guide him, make him stand, because he has fallen into the trap of this lower vital, separative ego sense. It is every a logic that he gives. There is no clarity because it comes from a very lower level. So the vital education, through vital education, one needs to, we have to create such a system by which we refine our vital being, raise him, make it liberated from the clutches of the lower vital, and connect it with the higher vital, so then it can manifest that immense, pure rajas, pure strength. See, when we are talking about the education or yoga, tamas, rajas, and sattva, Gita speaks of the trigunati tattva. Okay, transcending the triguna. But triguna, transcending the triguna is not to become free from the trigunas. One can never become free or eliminate all these gunas. They are always there, but they have the two extreme ends, the lowest end, the highest end. So at the lowest end, tamas is all about inertia, laziness, lethargy, and all that. At the highest transformed state, the tamas is pure tranquility, calmness. Then rajas is not unnecessary desire or ambition or anything. It is the pure dynamism. Yes, you were saying something, Guruji?
Sure. My sincere apology to interrupt you in between. So, we are having now 5 minutes. Is it okay?
Okay, so I'll come to Manomaya and the spiritual being very quickly, and then explain you, though it would take more time, but let me concentrate on that.
Okay.
So making ourselves liberated from the vital, the limitations of the vital is to make ourselves free from the lower vital and then get connected with the higher vital. Similarly, when we come to the mental education, so the present system of education thinks that, bringing some sort of reasoning and some sorts of logic and all these things is all about, memorizing, is all about the mental education. But mind itself, the nature of mind itself is such that it is affected by the three major dosas. Our Rishi tradition has identified three major doshas: vikshepa, dispersion, mala, dirt, avarana, veil. So, because of this, mind's potential, full potential, is never experienced. So, the mind needs to become free from its limitations. And what we need? We need concentration, develop the power of concentration, then develop the power of expansion, expanding the mind. We need to make it free from all the dispersed state, all the dirt and the veil. We need to make it organize, become more organized, and we need to make it, evolving in such a manner, so when the mental being of ours, the manomaya satta, becomes refined, it becomes the perfect instrument for manifesting the real wisdom or the knowledge. It is an instrument which has to manifest the higher knowledge. And refined mind alone, liberated from all its limitations, become connected with the buddhi, the viveka buddhi, okay, the vijnana. Then they work together. Then the real psychological education happens. Now, this mana, prana, and sharira still operate at the lower level. They do not have the capacity to become fully aware of themselves unless and until they are connected with the highest principle, which is our spiritual essence, which is called our antaratman, the spiritual core of ours. The seat of that is our heart. So that is why if mind is the highest principle in the aparardha, in the lower hemisphere, which is leading the prana and sharira, needs to be brought under the influence of the antaratman. So that's why the Gita says, Atma sanstham manah krutva na kinchid apichintayet. Or mano hrudi nirudhya. Fix the mind in the heart and then brought it under the influence of the Atman. So then the Atman comes to the front and leads that perfected mind, perfected vital, and perfected physical. Then the Anandamaya Satta is realized, which is the highest aim of life and education. Thank you.